registered to vote and active in politics, the better we will be in the long term.
Yeah, I agree. Sophie and I have both already taken our very young children to vote with us.
Amazing.
My, I think my 6-year-old has been to vote like 6 times already. He's
Wow.
he's
That's
an
awesome.
accomplished voter. He one time he was like the only person there because so few people turned out for some off-cycle election that
Yeah.
he got like a whole box of donuts because the poll workers were so excited to have a little kid there. So we should tell kids, go vote.
Go vote. Yeah.
You might get
Yeah.
Yep.
donuts.
Ben actually went to vote with me when after I think he was only 3 or 4 weeks old the first time he came, bundled up in a wrap. But
Nice.
he sort of peeked out and looked at everybody, and we try to take him every time we vote so that he sees that it's something that grown-ups do.
Yeah.
That's great.
So, Maggie, have you seen when you're in the schools or when any of your deputies are in the schools, are the kids who aren't yet old enough to register, are they excited about the idea of, being able to register in a year or two?
You know what? It really depends on where we're registering them. That sounds strange. So, like, if we're in their cafeteria, right, and
Mm-hmm.
they see our giant signs and says "register to vote," and we write on them, "You are eligible to register to vote if you are 17 years old,"
Mm-hmm.
because that is true. Um, as of November 8th, if any young person is 17 by November 8th of this year, 2017, they can vote in the primaries as 17-year-olds, and then they can vote in the general election in November 8th of 2018 or the 6th. It's one of those two. But so if we're in their cafeteria and they see it, right? That's I'm in marketing, so like brand awareness is pretty much what I like to call it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they're seeing it, but they might not be able to engage. But 2 weeks ago, 2 Fridays ago, I went to Barrington High School's football game, and uh, I don't have anything that says register to vote here on my person, so I have to engage these people, these young people, in their face, like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, are you 17? You can register to vote. And so it's just a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
They're not ready for that question. But when they're in their own territory, on their own turf, and they can see it from afar and come closer and figure out more about it, they are definitely more engaged.
Yeah, I think we need that to be, become the kind of rite of passage that getting your driver's license is, right?
Right?
That, or, turning 21 and being able to drink or something like, oh, I'm 18, I get to go register to vote, or, I'm 17, I can register, and now I'm 18 and I can vote in a general election.
Yeah, and you saw that with Rock the Vote, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember Rock the Vote with
Yeah.
MTV, and all the famous people were like, you gotta show up to vote and things like that, but it didn't really yield anything. It didn't it it's tough, and I think that it's going to be a challenge for probably the rest of human existence, to get people excited about something where they don't feel like their voice is heard. And I think that is where we need to start, um, in terms of how we could fix the cycle, like
Mm-hmm.
making sure that people of color and minority, people of all religions and sex and orientation, like they need to feel like their voice is heard and that it matters.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to take some time, um, but that is where we have to penetrate, right? That's what we need to focus on, is helping and guiding those people and truly helping them believe that their voice matters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So we've been talking about having deputy registrars. So help us think through, when do we need a deputy registrar? You can register yourself to vote, right? And so sort of what is the purpose of having a deputy registrar? When should people feel comfortable just going ahead and registering themselves?
Yeah, it's a great question. Ultimately, I think uh, the human race, and now because we are in this digital age, is very lazy.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at young people, for example, the 17 and 18-year-olds, it's not until their friends come up to the table to register to vote for them to then come up to register to vote, right? So then you see this cycle, this cyclical wave, this like these these young people coming up and being more interested and engaged because their peers are interested and engaged. And I think it works very similarly with older adults. Also, we live in a city like Chicago. And I don't know about you, but I have moved 8 times in 10 years. And I've had to re-register every single time, even if I've moved 1 block away and I still have to re-register, even though my polling place is the same. So I am abiding the law. I have to re-register to vote. And everyone does. And so that's like that whole voter fraud thing with Crosscheck, which is just a whole mess of non-existent fraud. They're really trying hard to push that and that's what those types of things stop people from voting and re-registering and re-engaging in their local politics.
So I looked up the Illinois, it was like the DMV website about how to register, and it is just the most complex, longest website. I was just sort of mind-boggling that it takes so much for them to explain just how to register to vote.
Yep.
So Sophie, do you know anything about Wisconsin? Is it equally, I would guess, being Wisconsin, that it is it equally difficult and complex?
Actually, Wisconsin has a fantastic voter registration website.
Wow.
It is so good. It talks you through how to register to vote. You can do some of it online. There is a great website where you put in your information. It'll tell you whether you're registered to vote, and it'll show all the previous elections that you voted in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really great. It'll tell you you can select the election you're looking for, and it'll show you like what issues and candidates are on the ballot for your particular zip code. It's like really useful. So for an example of a good voter registration website, especially compared to Ohio's, which I used to have to try and navigate and was terrible. It's a really good example, actually.
Wow, that's great. Scott Walker must not know about it.
Yeah, right. I was going to say it's pretty surprising considering how they have to now show a valid ID to actually go vote.
Oh no! See, white people use the internet, so it's okay.
I see.
Yeah, that's how it works in Wisconsin.
Yeah. So I also looked up. Trump must not know about this, but there is a website run by the U.S. government, vote.usa.gov, which tries to help you make sense of voting laws, despite the fact that there are different voting laws in every state and D.C. So if you are unsure where to even start for your particular state, it is worth going vote.usa.gov. And there are, I think now, 36 states plus D.C. that allow you to do at least part of the process online. So you can start there. There's a PDF that's the National Mail Voter Registration Form. Of course, if you fill that out, you then have to figure out where in the world you need to send it. But it does talk through some things about, what the minimum requirements are for voting in the U.S. It gives links to laws about if you have a felony conviction, when you can vote again. That's highly dependent by state. and it tells you some things about, if you have a disability, where to check to be aware of laws and things like that. So it's a very long website, but it is pretty helpful in figuring out at least where to start if you don't know, where in your state controls voting. I hope and assume that all of our listeners are registered to vote, but just in case you are not, please get registered. So, Maggie, I was wondering if there's anything that's been surprising to you as you've done this work.
It nearly brought me to tears when one of the first high schools that I went into to register students to vote it was a very big school. The students were so excited about the opportunity to register. I have chills right now thinking about it, because I know at the age that they are and the age that when I was 17, I did not feel that way. Right? I did not feel that way. And that brings me so much hope for the future.
That's really great. Have there been fewer, how do I want to ask this? Have there been people who weren't already registered that surprised you that they weren't on top of it? Are you having teachers come up to you in these schools or anything?
Yeah, we've had a couple janitors. We've had parents. And a lot of the times it's re-registers, which again is very hopeful, right? They are registered. They just either have moved or maybe they didn't vote in the last election, and they're wanting to own up to it, and retake their voice, take voice back, and say, "I want you to hear me." No one truly out of the ordinary, no. So. But we live in a pretty, Cook County's even though it is blue, it's very blue. Cook County's very blue. It's always great to see that people are truly invigorated and excited, and hopeful for the future.
Great. All right, and then I think probably the final question I have is automatic voter registration. So I know that Illinois voted on it unanimously, and Governor Rauner eventually signed it, but I can't find anything recent about what the actual status of it is, even in Illinois.
You don't say. Rauner came out after he had signed it and said it'd be ready for 2018. It will not be. As of right now, what we know is that it will be 2019, which is just perfect, right? Perfect opportunity to not get people to register to vote when they get their new license or change their license. So as of right now, from what I know, it's 2019. So it will not be ready for the gubernatorial race. It certainly won't be ready for March 20th, which is our primaries. It's gonna be. It's great. We held his feet to the fire. He said no the first time, and the second time he could not refuse. And that is a true testament to community organizing and groups like Indivisible and the ACLU, Planned Parenthood, even really sticking to their guns and saying, no, this is what we want, this is what we need. So unfortunately, it won't be there for when he does not get reelected. And that just means we have to fight that much more. That means that we have to get into every possible high school before the primaries, and then after the primaries, get into all the other schools before November 6th.
And so how will automatic voter registration work it's still not the case that everybody will be automatically registered.
Right, that's correct. So if you go into the DMV for the first time and you're getting your brand new license to people that are getting,